Good evening, and we're coming back from executive session. This is the May meeting of the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners. There's some agendas up front here. I wasn't expecting the crowd, so let me get my notes together. Okay, we have one set of minutes to approve tonight. That's the April 21st meeting. Those minutes are about 20 pages long. Mostly it's the two sets of policies that we adopted at the April 21st meeting, which was the amending the FOIL policy to update the names, and two was the updated procurement policy. So we're trying to update a couple policies each month, and that was last month. So that was the April 21st meetings. I'd look for a motion to adopt those minutes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Peter. And seconded by Stephen. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. Chief Grogan is not with us tonight. He's been excused. He is in upstate New York. Permer is having a meeting, who's our workman's comp carrier, and they're having a conference, so he's going to be attending that tomorrow. So the chief is not with us, although we had two significant fires this month.
Excuse me, Dennis, just to inform the public, please turn off your radios, cell phones. Thank you.
Okay. So we had two fires this month. One was handled by Captain Dempsey, and the other was handled by Captain Yazzo. Both were excellent stops. The men did a wonderful job. No one was hurt, no homeowners were hurt. Both houses had construction going on at the time, which reminds you, a lot of times when you see construction in town, you'll see vehicles parked in front of fire hydrants because there's usually a lot of workers around the houses, so it's important. If you're having construction done on your house, keep those hydrants clear. In both of these cases, the men were able to attach to a hydrant relatively quickly and attack the fire quickly. So that's my summary of the chief's report.
We also had the fire on Maple Avenue. Captain Pinto was in charge of that one.
Okay, I didn't see that one, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we can go for quite a long period of time without real significant fires, but this month we had them. And last month we had Paul Radalone here. Last month, Paul was first on scene to a house fire, and he knocked it down relatively quickly, which saved the house. So, yeah. Let's move on to the treasurer's report. Jamie Henstrom.
So this month, at our last meeting, we talked about the presentation of the financials and the various different ways to look at the analysis. So this month, the reports will look a little bit different. So you have various snapshots. You have a month analysis as well as year to date, and then a look at what's remaining in our budget for the year. I don't know if there's any comments. Were there too many? Was it what you were looking for? So we can kind of...
I didn't get a chance to go through it as thoroughly as I would have liked, but I think it's exactly what we had asked for at the last meeting, so initial reaction is looks good.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is an off-cycle somewhat meeting, I didn't get a chance to fully go through it either. I was curious, are we taking the annual and divide it by 12ths?
Yeah, that's how the budget was set up for this
Right.
year.
So we take the annual divided by 12ths, and right now we're would be
Although, I mean, certain, for instance, like the receipt of the taxes, that was timed, that revenue was timed for May.
Specific.
Right.
But for the most part, it's divided by the year.
divided by 12. Okay, and so we'll go through that more in detail.
Okay.
And we did get the taxes in from the town in one shot?
Yes, we did. So we received, on May 10th, we received our full amount of the taxes from the town.
Right. And we moved the $1.5 million into the
Yes.
reserve
yeah.
account?
Yeah, so our last month meeting, we did make that move to the reserve account.
Perfect. And so we have your report here. Anything you want to highlight or anything you want to go through?
No, I mean, I think just the things we're looking into this month, obviously, we keep mentioning Ceridian, our payroll provider. It's turning out to be a slower process than we anticipated in trying to make the change to their online platform, but we do still have that in process. We also, this month, we filed our 1094C, and that goes back to the Affordable Care Act filings. We had to make the 1095Cs were due to the employees earlier this year. This form that was provided now to the IRS was due at the end of this month, and that's basically the transmittal to the IRS. So that's been taken care of, so we're on time with that. And then the other thing we had started looking into this month, we might have a bit of a tax benefit for some of our firefighters that are contributing to the pension plan and the health care plan. So that's something that we're performing an analysis on right now, working with our outside providers. And so we might have some good news on that front, and we'll
Right, and that
inform
would
them.
just affect a few of the new hires. Tier 6 might get some positive news that they were not expecting.
Yeah, and potentially Tier 5 as well.
And 5.
Yes.
Okay. This will be our first IRS filing, right? We don't file anything with the IRS other than the 1090, the W-2s and that type of thing. We don't have any filings we do as a department.
That's
So
right.
this is our first department filing.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you,
Lucky
Affordable
us.
Care Act.
The law of unintended consequences.
And next month, we have the PERMA bill coming in.
Correct.
Now, our healthcare provider is, not healthcare, our workman's comp provider is PERMA, and they've submitted us a bill that's pretty much flat year over year.
Yeah, the bill's pretty much flat year over year. They explain, there's a cost that tends to increase a little bit. However, then there's also our experience rating, which has dropped, which is a good thing. So that, means we're favorable compared to, other similar municipalities. So, between the two together, it tends to stay flat. We're going to be meeting with our representatives next week to walk through the proposal in detail.
And the board will have to do something with that by July 1st, that policy's up, right? So we'll have to do something by July 1st for that policy.
Yeah, that's correct. We pay upfront to receive the benefit of the discount.
We saved the 2%.
Yeah.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any questions or comments?
No, no, no.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you, Jamie. You're welcome to stay or run home if you like, either one. That's Treasurer's report. Committee reports. Do we have any committee reports tonight at all?
Just that Commissioner Napolitano wanted me to extend his regrets for not being able to be here tonight. He was going to be here, and then he realized that his daughter has a recital from the school. So under Maslow's hierarchy of needs, survival being up there, he decided to go to take care of his family.
Well, that's good. That's what we should be doing.
Yes.
So, we spoke in the past about the Chester Heights. So anybody else with committee reports?
I got, Sunday, the department had its memorial service. We presented the badge and his white hat to the priest after the 9 o'clock mass, and then we went to the monument. We honored the past that died during the course of the year. The VFW did a firing squad, and after that, we had a little ceremony and a breakfast. And at the same time, the chief or the assistant chief is not here, but I'm going to request that we could use the utility truck for Monday's parade to pull the hose cart. So should I check with the assistant chief tomorrow morning?
Who would drive the utility truck?
Mr. Spadaro.
Oh, okay. And he's doing that as a volunteer, not on clock?
No, it's Memorial Day parade on Monday.
No, but he's also an employee. I just want to make sure he's doing it as a volunteer.
He's doing it as a volunteer. Yeah.
Do you have any problem with that? The reason why I mentioned that truck you need somebody quite familiar with that truck because
Yeah.
it's got a very hard clutch and it's a stick. That's all. He's used to driving it, so he's familiar.
I don't think that's a stick.
It won't be a problem for him. Oh, it is.
It is?
Yeah, it's a stick.
Yeah, I have no problem. He's doing it as a volunteer.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but, I don't have a problem with that. So, all right.
And we're just, waiting for the hat badge for the priest's hat. We just gave him a temporary badge to put on there right now.
Okay,
The chief says he has it on order.
Okay.
okay.
Beautiful day for the ceremony.
Pardon me?
It was a beautiful day for the ceremony.
Yep.
I had confirmation, so that's why I wasn't there, unfortunately.
And that's a department thing, and the volunteers paid for it. I think that the department should have paid for that, but we paid for it.
Under what funds?
So, okay, so let's move on. Well, while we're here, we might as well talk about house. We, a while back, had been going back and forth with FSI Contractors, architectural firm. We, after exhaustive going back and forth, we think we've come to a place where we're just going to move forward. So I would, and this is for the Chester Heights Firehouse, to conduct an engineering report, an engineering study, to where we're going to be changing the roof, the windows, and repointing the outside of the building, basically. The negotiations with the architectural firm is taking longer than we wanted, but we're now to a point where we're just going to move this forward. Is that fair, Peter?
Yep.
So I would look for a motion to adopt the January 21st, 2016 proposal as provided.
I'll make that motion, but are you sure January 16th?
January 21st is the last one, or as amended, or,
Yeah, I think there was an amendment that we received
As
2 weeks
amended.
ago that was the final version.
okay, so this, a resolution to retain FSI architectural firm to perform as defined in the original January 21st, 2006 proposal with subsequent amendments. How's that?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, so that'll be Peter. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Mr. Laurie, I'll poll the board. Commissioner Laurie?
Aye.
Commissioner Inkledon?
Aye.
Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
And I'll say aye. Motion carried. So we'll execute that and move on with life. Over the course of the year, as I mentioned earlier, we're updating the different policies. We're trying to do 2 a month. This month, at the end of last month's meeting, we asked our council to look up 2 policies. One was workplace violence policy and one was sexual harassment policy. On May 4th, they came back and told us our workplace violence policy as written was perfectly adequate. We needed to update the names to the appropriate titles that we have today. So we're going to amend that policy just by changing the titles, so it's by position. So, and maybe should just leave it by position. Chairman of the board will be first, his contact information is chairman of the board. Fire commissioner is the chair of the career committee. Chief of the department would be a third contact, and general counsel would be fourth. In our case, that would be Paul Sweeney, our outside counsel. So for chairman, it'll be myself. For career committee, it'll be Commissioner Baker, Chief of the department, Mike Grogan, and Paul Sweeney for counsel. And that'll update the workplace violence policy. Nothing else needs to be done on that. Since our sexual harassment policy was drafted, I think, in '98, the world's changed slightly, so it has protected classes have increased a bit. So that policy's been circulated. There's a copy up here. So it'll be called the Eastchester Fire District Sexual, Gender-Based, and Anti-Harassment Policy. So this policy, which was also sent to us on the 4th, is pretty much as circulated. It is as circulated, except for the contact information. So, any discussion on updating the policies? So this will,
Title's a mouthful. Can we come up with a really cool acronym or something, you know?
it's somebody else's policy, like the state,
Yeah.
it's the policy, I think, from EEOC, just painted
Right.
with our name on it,
Okay.
basically what it is. We didn't pay to have the whole thing drafted. I think it came directly from the EEOC. So, can I get a motion that we that we adopt the Eastchester Fire District sexual, gender-based, and anti-discrimination policy.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Baker, do I have a second?
Second.
First, second is Peter, and I'll call the board. Mr. Laurie?
Aye.
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 And I'll say aye, so we'll update those two policies. So that'll be about 5 policies we've done this year. We have about 25 policies overall that we're going to try to work through. Okay. Flip through 5 pages of policies. Our agenda is pretty abbreviated tonight. I had PERMA on the agenda, but that policy is not coming up until next month, and we're meeting with them next week to discuss it. Just so people are aware, workman's compensation is basically a self-insurance policy. So if your incident levels are significant, they just raise your rates to a couple of years later to match how much money they paid out. So that's how those policies function. It's not like an auto policy. They change the rates to match your experience rate. Okay? Local 916. Okay. Okay.
Stephen, you are participating in the Memorial Day Parade with your local? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there was an email chain going around, and there's some confusion. I tried to alleviate that confusion, so I hope everything's good. Opportunity for the public to address the board, or if the VOA wants to address the board.
Thank you. I just want to send our thanks out to the members of the Lieutenant Colonel Sam Dorenzo Post 2285 for the 3 members that they had for the rifle squad, and the bugler this past Sunday morning. Several of our members that passed since last year were veterans, so it kind of like killed 2 birds with 1 stone, not to be funny, but
No, point well taken.
it did make it look real nice to the family members that were present.
And we also had a bagpiper there besides a bugler.
Yes.
Hey, Michael Teleska, Eastchester. I watched that meeting that you had in the morning. There were a couple of things I'd like to discuss about it. How many people were actually at that meeting from the public?
What meeting, was this the April
The
meeting?
AM meeting, yeah.
The AM
One
meeting?
you had in the morning, early in the morning.
Oh, I think there was the board, Mary Smith was there, I think council was there for the volunteers, and a few other people.
The reporter was there.
And a reporter for the local newspaper.
Okay. I watched that on TV, and it really hit me in the gut. I thought it was a horrible way Commissioner Laurie was handling that. If he's on a committee for volunteers, along with Mr. Napolitano, was Mr. Napolitano aware of what was going on with David Horn? Did he know ahead of time what you were doing with David Horn?
I don't know.
You don't know. I know Commissioner Laurie was blindsided, and he's an elected official.
I think that
I think every elected official on that board, nobody should be ostracized, nobody should be kept in the dark. Everybody needs to be well aware of what's on your personal agenda or any of the board members' agenda. And I thought that was a horrible way to handle that. And I'd like to further state a few things if I could. You know, volunteers in this town have gone back hundreds of years, and they were an integral part of firefighting. Now we have pretty much a professional firefighting service and a fully paid department, and we really don't use volunteers that much. But that doesn't say that we cannot pay our respects to the men that spent 50 years of their lives volunteering services to the fellow members of our community. And to treat David Horn or any other member, whether it's Frank O'Rourke, anybody else, they spent 50 years volunteering in this town. I don't care where they live. It means absolutely nothing to me where they live. They served their community. They put their heart and soul into this community of Eastchester. They came at the Bronxville Tucko. They got up 3 o'clock in the morning. They did their job. They never got a service award. They never had their taxes reduced, and now they can't afford to live in town. And that's the thanks you give them? No, I'm sorry. It's unacceptable. completely unacceptable. It's just, you know, the time and effort you put towards that, if I was sitting on that board, I could have had a mass casualty drill prepared. We live in an age of terrorism. We should be worried about what's important in life. That is not important. These are true men that gave their heart and soul to this community, and I really think you kicked them in the teeth. And it was very unprofessional, and that comes from me. I'm a former paid professional firefighter. I'm not here speaking, I'm speaking from my heart. I wouldn't volunteer in this town because I was a paid professional firefighter. I believe in being a fully paid department. But with a budget that we have in Eastchester Fire Department that's larger than the Bronxville and Tuckahoe combined municipal budgets, well, we got to keep it down as best we can. I'm not saying to go recruit volunteers. What I'm saying to you is what you had, what we used should be appreciated, and you just should really reconsider what you did.
Well, I think to defend what the board did, all the board did at those meetings was simply ask the chief to comply with Section 176B of New York State Town Law. That's all. We asked him to comply with town law, and members who don't live in the district should be removed from the rolls. Now, you have members who have moved out of town 10 years ago and are still being carried on the rolls. If we are going to make any effort to make the volunteer organization viable, which one can argue it may never be, but if you're going to make any effort, you have to comply with the current, you can't pick and choose, well, let's comply with this law and not comply with that law. So we have asked the volunteers repeatedly just to simply give us the name and address of who the members are and where they live. The board has to bring in Article 78 against the VOA, which is basically an enforcement of a FOIL request to say where they live and who they are. So I don't think the board is being prosecutorial or mean-spirited or vindictive. You're simply asking people to tell us who are your members, where do they live, and who are they, and we never get that answer. And we go through meeting after meeting after meeting. So finally the board says to the chief, Chief, comply with New York State law. If someone is not living in town, remove them from the roll.
And also deceased.
Or deceased.
We had people listed that were deceased.
Could I say something on that? Oh, I'm sorry.
So I don't think, I mean, there's two sides to the story, and I think you should see where the board's coming from.
And I think it might serve you well to go back and look at the dozen previous meetings and see how this is kind of played out and how these requests have been made repeatedly, month after month after month, with no response.
Does it cost any money to the fire district? Do you save any money by removing him?
If we remove the volunteers completely, you're going to save about $20,000 a year in workman's compensation insurance. Now, you'll have to have some work.
Not the volunteers completely.
You're going to have some
That
workman.
member that you
Well, we have to, look, we're going to renew a workman's compensation insurance policy next month, $400,000 plus dollars. Most of that policy is set based on your salary of your employees, and they take a percentage of your salary of your employees. But portion of that is also, we have to estimate how many volunteers we have. The people at PERMA we can't say to them, well, we have 15 volunteers who've never been to a fire in 10 years. They're not going to buy that. All they're going to say is, how many volunteers do you have? And they're going to score it and charge us for it. Now, that's just dollars and cents. As a board member sitting on this board, we are covered by workman's compensation insurance. If we were to fall down at a board meeting or something, you'd have to have workman's compensation insurance. So we're the only volunteers in this department that probably really need workman's compensation insurance. You have to have it by New York State law. But we tell them every year we have 15 or 20 volunteers. We don't know who these volunteers are, but we have them. Is that fair to the taxpayers?
Are you asking me personally?
Yeah, it's a rhetorical question, basically.
No, what I'm saying is, are you saving any, like somebody who's not active, he's not active, is interior certified or exterior certified, he's not active, how are you paying insurance for him if he's not active?
Well, no, we don't know he's not active. He was listed
He's
as an
listed as an
active
active
volunteer.
member.
He was listed as an active volunteer until Mike Grogan sent him his letter. He lives in Hawthorne, or wherever he lives, it's 30 miles away from here, listed as an active volunteer. Is that appropriate?
So can you create a status for somebody
I would love to create a status that calls them ambassadors but, you know, something like that. But you cannot have it, you can't have it, do you see what I'm saying? And we're not being unreasonable here, I don't think. Would it be nice to have some other status? Yes. The reason why the law is the way it is, the law doesn't want to this is my understanding of it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'll give you and this is what the chief believes as well. It doesn't want departments pilfering members from other departments. So in New York State, you can only be a member of one department at a time. Because it doesn't want you being a member upstate New York and a member here, and you cannibalizing your neighboring departments.
It's either the department of the town you live in, district you live in, or the district you work in.
Correct. So and these laws, like 176B, is written for guys who are volunteer firemen to read. And it's read very basic stuff that people should be able to understand.
Commissioner Winter, but I think he's trying to tell you that Mr. Horn was picked out of it. You got members that moved to South Carolina that are still on the rolls.
And
they did, wait a minute, Commissioner.
Right.
They didn't receive letters.
If they send a letter to the fire department
They-
with their address in South Carolina, they will get a letter.
Right.
Mr. Horn sent a letter to us from Carmel, New York. So therefore, you have on notice that he's no longer here.
Yeah, but you only point to Mr.
No,
Horn,
we
which
did
was...
not. The direct, if you
Why,
look.
why didn't...
Wait, if you look at the
I had the
record,
floor. Why didn't the other individuals get a letter? And as I told Mr. Horn, that letter's out of order because it's said by orders of the Board of Fire Commission. That letter should have stated by a vote of 4-1, and it went to Mr. Horn as by orders of the Board of Fire Commission. And I told Mr. Horn that my vote was no on it. So it should have been a vote of 4-1, and I'm not mentioning people's names here tonight, but I could tell you names that are out of town, and by the same token, Mr. Horn's an honorary chief. You don't do that to an honorary chief. You just don't do that to an honorary chief. The man has done 50-plus years in this town, lifelong resident. Yes, maybe the man moved away. That's his business, but he still keeps the status as honorary chief until the day the man from upstairs calls him. And that was totally unfair to just pinpoint that one man.
may I speak now?
Yes, go
Yes.
If you look at the record and go back and look at the record, you'll see the directive was to remove everyone that we had
Yes.
address. Wait,
All the
now I have the
letters should have
floor.
went out at
Now
one
I have the
time.
floor. And we don't have everybody's address, and it was told, the chief was told to look into it and take them as he could find them, correct?
Correct.
So everybody who's in that stage will be removed, because that's the law. It's not anything Mr. Horn. Mr. Horn happens to be the, I don't know, test case or whatever you want to
But
say.
you can't do that to an honorary chief.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot.
He's not a member of the department. He does not live in the town.
He's
You can
a
call him an
member.
honorary, I still have the floor. You can call him an honorary chief. You could call him the homecoming king, but he's not allowed to be a member of the department.
Okay, now let me just tell you, back you up a little bit. We had a couple of honorary chiefs in the Tucker Hose Company that moved out to Tom's River, okay? And they came and they applied to get exempt, and they were denied the exempt papers. They were told by the Board of Fire Commissioners that they are honorary chiefs and there's no exemption papers needed for them gentlemen.
Is there a record of that anywhere?
I don't know if it's a record on file, but I was there when they was told that. And I was told right in the front office. And I was there because I was with the individual. He wanted me to go with him, him and another man wanted me to go with him to get their exempt papers. And they were told they did not need it. They are honorary chiefs. They had like about 54 years at the time that they applied for it.
I think the exempt status is covered under Section 200 of General Municipal Law. I don't think there's any wording in there that talks about honorary chiefs.
I looked at it and there's nothing in there.
So,
It's a title and it's an honor, but it doesn't hold any legal,
I
word
mean,
So you're expelling an honorary chief. That's an embarrassment.
no.
Yes, it is.
When the member moves out of the district, the day they moved out of the district is when they themselves remove themselves from the department. If you read exactly the wording in the law, it says, it's not for the board to remove them. It's when they remove themselves from the district, they are no longer a member of the department. Just read the language in the law. We're not making this up. When they remove themselves from the district, they are no longer members of that department. Also, for a person to get exempt status, which in this municipality, it's not very critical to have exempt status. It's a very good status to have. Well, it is critical in this district. In most districts, and you were 100% correct, Mike, what you mentioned earlier, some districts, and particularly volunteer districts on Long Island and upstate New York, will give a tax incentive, to property tax incentive, if you are a volunteer. And that exemption status, that status carries over with your exempt status. That's why exempt status is very carved out, very exact in the law, because they know it's a benefit being bestowed on somebody for their service.
Right, and they would get it regardless of where they live afterwards, because they perform their volunteerism in that, for the service in that
correct.
community.
In statewide,
Well,
anywhere in New York
I'm not going to
State.
go into that. I mean, we tried that years ago, and shame on the people for voting it down, but that's the flip side of the coin, is perhaps the man could have stayed in the town he grew up in had he been afforded a service award, and he could have afforded his taxes, like so many people have to leave who can't afford the higher taxes in this town. That's my point. 50
Right,
years
right.
of service, and you can't afford to live in town, shame on us. That's
Right, but the members who, the volunteers
Good point.
who are in the district, they should apply while they're in the district, because they can't apply after they're out of the district. You have to be a member of the department when you apply for exempt status. So anybody thinking of leaving the district should apply for exempt status prior to them leaving. And the board has to grant exempt status by a vote. That's what and we've pleaded with people over the years to apply for exempt status if you're a former volunteer, if you're a volunteer. We've had this conversation numerous times. It's not like we haven't had it. So that's what we are. Thank you for coming.
I'm Marcia Garrett. I've been a volunteer with Eastchester for 15 years. And you talk about the volunteers being viable. When I was first a volunteer, we were very viable. And it seems to me that from the day you took over as commissioner, it's been like your motive to destroy the volunteers. We have been dismantled, put out of our quarters, all kinds of stuff. So I'd like to know, if you talk about the taxpayers all the time, wouldn't the taxpayers be interested in getting free labor? There's a bunch of people who are giving their time and effort for free. Does that not benefit a taxpayer?
I agree with you that volunteers are important. And it's almost like you're getting more kids living at home with their parents now. So the likelihood of you actually getting somebody who could be a volunteer in this community is growing from in the past.
You know why? Because when you go to a fire, when I first went to a fire, I was allowed to do things. And then next year, nothing. You go there and you stand there with your hands in your wherever. So I don't understand that. You're not utilized at all by the department.
Were you going to have your volunteers this is just me speaking and what I think. If you're in a department like this department, where you have 75 career members who get over 100 hours training a year, and more than that now, we've accelerated that a little bit more this year. It's very hard to think you're going to have an interior certified volunteer going to do an interior attack at a fire. What you're going to need, more likely, is you're going to want scene support. The last,
You don't get to do that.
well, if you could have a volunteer corps that could do scene support, basically fire police. I saw 2 fires this
Talk
month.
about ambassadors. Can we get a committee appointed
But
to
the
form
last-
that division?
Fire
Instead of
police-
just leaving these people with
Wait,
nothing
wait,
to do, who
one at a
want to
time.
volunteer. We want to help Eastchester.
But-
How can we do that?
But the fire police is a vital thing that we need. If you look at what happened, I saw 2 fires recently, and you're going to, I ended up blocking the road, because it was only about a block away from my house. I walked over, and cars were coming up Crawford, and they were going to dead end because there was the fire engines and the smoke were all up at the top of the hill. So I just stopped at the bottom and just shooed people down the street so they wouldn't go up and get in everybody's way. But that's what you
Fire
need.
department.
With the last drill we had, it
We would
was,
have joined the police if we wanted to be the police.
No, fire
If there's
police.
some kind of ambassador unit that you were discussing,
Fire police is a...
How do we form that?
Okay, never mind. Fire police is a designation of a volunteer. A fire police is people who do traffic control at a fire scene. They're not policemen, they're firemen, but they call them fire police. They control traffic at fire scenes. Typically in a volunteer department, your senior members who are not doing the interior attack are being scene support. We don't get that many fires, but when we do, there is a need for scene support. People to roll up hoses after the fire, because let's face it, the career guys, after they get done working on a fire, they're kind of exhausted. Somebody has to roll the fire on New Rochelle Road. They probably put out 500 feet. Is that 6-inch hose they put out, 8-inch hose? I'm not sure what the diameter. 5-inch hose.
How can we get to that?
There was probably 600 feet of 5-inch hose out because they grabbed a hydrant that was the closest one they could grab, had to be 6 houses away from where the fire scene was, or greater, on New Rochelle Road. And so somebody's got to roll all that back up, put it back in the truck, and that's the ideal for a volunteer.
But Commissioner
We have no
Winter,
problem doing that, but how do we do it?
Well, we've been trying to do this, and the problem we've been is we can't even learn who our existing volunteers are.
Commissioner Winter.
We have to go to court to find out who the existing volunteers are.
Commissioner
Is that
Winter,
logical?
The last drill we had was 2 years ago, and I was at it. We had it in the park in Chester Heights. And all of a sudden, someone stopped Captain Tween for giving drills to the volunteers. Who stopped it? I don't know. I don't know if it was the Board of Fire Commissioners.
We don't get involved in that.
That was stopped. That was stopped. Am I right, Commissioner Winter?
I don't know.
I think you ordered it stopped.
I didn't order it stopped. I'm not gonna, I never, well, the thing I do on this board, I
Okay,
never...
we brought applications up to the front.
It really stinks that you have to fight to be a volunteer. I also volunteer at the Bronx VA, and let me tell you, when I walk in there, I'm welcomed with open arms. I'm given the tools I need to help the gentleman at the VA, and I really feel like you're doing the taxpayers a disservice by not using the free labor who is sitting here trying to volunteer. We've had people that have come in, young people that you're talking about, and after about 2 months they go, we're not doing anything. What are we going to come to this for? So there's a pool of labor that you guys can take advantage of. If there's a way you want me to be on any kind of committee that we can form this police, or tell me where to find the fire police, so these people can help the town of Eastchester. That's all we want to do.
I think what's, right now, and we're still learning as to what the volunteer organization consists of. And the way we're going to learn is hopefully a judge will approve our Article 78. We will get the documents from the volunteers. We will understand the organizations we're dealing with. And then it's probably a consolidation down to one group, and that one group has to get a new defined charter as to what they're going to do. But right now, we don't have that.
We had, last year, we had about 6 young fellas that wanted to join the volunteers, and we brought the applications up into the office, and it got lost in the wind. Then we had a few more guys come,
Thank you for your
and
comments.
they got lost in the wind, okay? And then we were told that Captain Tween was ordered to stop training the volunteers.
I can tell you, I'll make one comment. I'll make one comment on this volunteer thing. I don't want to go on this forever. The volunteers submitted paperwork to the court. Quote, unquote, they serve no governmental purpose in their own words. I can't make that up. That was their submission to the court. They serve no governmental purpose. That was their submission. So we'll leave it at that. Okay, yes.
I just want to say that,
We know who you are, but identify yourself for the people at home, please.
Tom Vishy, I'm the president that you're talking about with the Volunteer Officers Association.
We know, but they don't.
Okay. I just want it known that we are not the ones that are not cooperating. We've asked you on several occasions to sit down with us, and you've said no. So you want to go Article 78, 79, whatever you want, go for it. When Commissioner Baker read the 70 names and you said, well, you got 70 names, I sat here and counted at least 6 that were deceased, which you shouldn't have read because you should have known from the cards and the files that are at headquarters that these members were deceased.
How would we know that?
Their records never said.
Records, that's the active list.
No. Every every individual that fills out an application in this department should have a personnel file like you would anybody that came in to work for 916. It's that simple. You would have our records in it. Every time we take a training session at the fire training center, you get a certificate, it goes back to headquarters, it goes in the file. It's been that way for decades.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change now. We asked, the night that he read the 70 names, sit down, I'll bring my list, you bring your list, we'll sit down and we'll cross off the X's and O's. No, got no response. So it's not us. You want to go to court and sue in 78s, go for it.
Okay.
But we're not bad.
Any other comments? Okay, we have bills to pay tonight. So Treasurer Henstrom has prepared 2 sets of vouchers to pay through. The board has gone through the bills, and so the 2 sets of vouchers total $273,804.59. $273,804.59. The 1 set of vouchers is $173,391, spot 54. The other set of vouchers is $413.05. So I would look for a motion to pay the bills that are all stacked up in there.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it
And Mr. Baker seconds it,
painfully.
and I'll call the board. Mr. Laurie?
I just want to say, before I vote on that, there's a large amount of money in there that's set aside, or a bill, I should say, is going for lawsuits. And the public should know about that.
Okay, I'll explain on those in a minute. So
Okay.
is that a yes, Mr. Laurie?
Well, you want to explain it first?
No, I'll explain it first.
Okay.
We have a couple of actions we're defending on this. The town of Eastchester had brought a legal action against the fire district over the fire hydrants. Basically, the village of Bronxville and the village of Tuckahoe both passed a resolution a few years ago based on a Public Service Commission decision of 2012, where, I think it's 2012, you could be correct me, it might have been late 2011, but 2012, where they could transfer the liability of paying for hydrants to the property owner, all property owners, including not-for-profits, churches and that type of thing. So if you have a water meter in your house, you're going to get a charge for the hydrants in your community. In the past, the municipalities, both Bronxville and Tuckahoe, viewed it that people in non-for-profits, which didn't have to pay a property taxes, were getting somewhat of a free ride because they were getting the hydrant availability without paying the property taxes. So by doing this, it would be more equitable, passing that charge along, Public Service Commission charge. So if you're in Bronxville and Tuckahoe, you get an extra blessing in your monthly water bill now that's like $12 or something, and that's a hydrant fee that you're paying. We had been reimbursing the village of Bronxville about 28% of their hydrant bill. In the past years, a few years back, we would be reimbursing Tuckahoe as well, some percentage. Eastchester, we were, I think it was 30-odd% or 35%, we were reimbursing Eastchester. When the 2 villages passed that fee on to the residents, Eastchester kept on sending in the bills. So we could not pay the Eastchester bill because we take our money from Bronxville, Tuckahoe, and Eastchester under $1 per thousand of assessment. So therefore, Bronxville and Tuckahoe would be subsidizing a portion of Eastchester's hydrant bill. This is about $160,000 a year from the fire district would be going towards Eastchester. If you think about Bronxville pays about 30% of the overall budget to the fire district. Tuckahoe pays about 17% to the fire district. Between the two, it's 47%. So 47% of that $160,000 would be coming from people who shouldn't be billed. So we didn't pay the bill, and we explained that in pretty clear language to the town, and the town board decided to sue the fire district and say, give us the $160,000 and give it to us forever. So We defended that lawsuit. There was a discovery period that went on for a while, and we recently filed a motion for summary judgment. A motion for summary judgment says, Judge, we believe this case should be dismissed based on the papers presented, and so we're hopeful that a judge will dismiss the case before it goes to a hearing, and then the people of Eastchester don't have to pay for the other people, for the Eastchester to sue Eastchester. I would be, and we're just defending it. We didn't bring the action, the town board brought the action. I would be interested to know out of what budget in Eastchester they're using to defend that, or to bring that action. Or is it going to be Eastchester only paying for that lawsuit, or is it everybody paying for that lawsuit? But in any case, that is an extravagant use of tax dollars on both sides of the fence, but I don't see how we as a fire board can send money to Eastchester when it's coming from Bronxville and Tuckahoe, and they're not getting any benefit. So that's a unique one. We also have these two Article 78s we brought against the Benevolent Association, and the Benevolent has responded back to that lawsuit saying they have unregulated funds, and they're allowed to use those funds as they wish, and blah, blah, blah. And we think the number could be as high as $4 million they have. I have no idea how much they have, they don't tell us. And the volunteers, we believe, based on the paperwork they submitted, are getting money from the Benevolent, since that's what the documents say. So those two lawsuits have been brought. Win or lose, we've learned a lot of information from their filings, and I would encourage anybody just to FOIL us, and we'll send you all the filings. If you haven't read them, we'll send them out there, and you can read them and make your own informed decision if you think the fire board is doing something improper by bringing those actions. We have a number of employee-related matters that come up all the time, and the board has been relatively successful on most all our claims. I think all of them we've been successful on defending claims against the district. So, yeah, the legal bills are high, but at the same...
You also have one against a former chief lawsuit?
No, we didn't bring the lawsuit against the former chief. The former chief brought the lawsuit against us. What happened there was, we saw how the chief was being compensated relative to
Union members.
union members, exactly. And so the former chief who is being compensated by the department under Section 207A2, and it's unique how this played about, but we basically reduced that month or 26 times a year payment by from roughly $3,400 every pay to $1,700 a pay, based on a hearing officer's recommendation after a proper Section 72 hearing, I think they call them. So we reduced the pay based on that hearing, and then the former employee had a legal right to bring a legal action. The employee brought the legal action, former employee. We defended the legal action, and we'll see how we prevail or not prevail. We get involved in legal actions with former employees, not often, but it happens. And so far, we've been, the board's prevailed pretty much on every action I think we've ever taken in the last 5 years. So I don't, I think it's just the way it is. And if you want to, that's what happens. So that's what we do. So I don't think it's just the normal course of business.
There's a large sum of money
It's a large sum of money,
that's being spent on lawsuits.
correct. But I'll just do the quick math for people at home who don't understand this quick math. If somebody is granted 207A2 benefit from the department pays them until they're 70 years old, roughly.
With increases.
With increases, at the current rate of a current fireman, in many cases. So you can have firemen, which we have, who got injured 20 years ago, and they're now in their mid-50s, and we'll be paying them until they're 70. If you did the math on how much that cost you per employee when those are not adjudicated properly, you're talking millions of dollars per person. So if those are not handled in a proper manner, and they should be handled in a proper manner for two reasons. One, it's good for the taxpayer, and it's good for the employee. Because it's good for the employee because when you do for somebody who's truly hurt or injured while they're at work, you can protect them just like someone who thinks it looks questionable, you can challenge it, but you also have the legal system in place to protect the person who's truly injured. So the fact that we are well-schooled on 207A2 and 207A, and we have a law firm that just specializes in that work, I think it works for the employee and it works for the taxpayer. Now, some people may not agree with that, but if you look at our overall payout on 207A2 claims, it's substantially less than it was a long time ago. Just the way the world works. And it also helps us when we do our workman's comp. We have much lower workman's comp rates than we might not have had we not have a thorough workman's compensation procedure. So I think it's all for the good. So, Mr. Laurie, do you want to vote for that?
Yes?
Mr. Baker?
I'm over here.
Okay. Mr.
Should have been a lawyer.
Mr.
Dennis.
Inkledon?
Aye.
Mr. Baker?
Aye.
And I'll say aye, Dennis Winter. Okay, so that motion, we can pay the bills, Jamie. Any board member comments? Okay. Can we have a motion to adjourn, or should we?
Just wish everybody a happy Memorial Day. Come out and view the parade like good Americans.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by
9:02.
Mr. Baker at 9:02. Second on that?
Second.
Second, Mr. Laurie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And thank everyone for coming. We appreciate you coming.